I moved into a cramped two-bedroom apartment a few months ago. I was 29 and trying to get my life back together after my breakup. I thought sharing a space might help, but things turned out differently. On my second night, I woke up around 3 a.m. I heard mumbling through the walls. It sounded low and distant, like my roommates were having a late-night conversation. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured I would mention it over breakfast, but I forgot. As the weeks went by, the mumbling got louder. I could hear bits and pieces of strange conversations. They were personal. At times, I felt like an outsider. I told myself they were close friends, but it felt off. Then one day in the kitchen, I found both my roommates staring blankly at a wall. They didn't even notice I was there. I stood frozen, unsure of what to say. It felt awkward. After a long moment, they turned to me, but their eyes looked different. It was like they were in a trance. I think I asked what they were doing, but they didn't answer. It was unsettling. After that, the atmosphere changed. Whenever I walked into a room, the silence felt heavy. My roommates exchanged glances that seemed to say so much. They hardly spoke when I was around, and it made me uncomfortable. I had this terrible feeling I should leave. One night, I heard them again. Late at night, the mumbling returned, but this time it was frantic. I pressed my ear against the wall, trying to catch words. It sounded like arguments mixed with whispers. I was scared. I thought about confronting them, but what if they didn't take it well? The next day, something felt different in the apartment. An emptiness hung in the air. I tried talking to my roommates, but they responded like robots. One-word answers that felt cold and distant. I felt like I was living with ghosts. After a few days of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to move out. But just as I was packing, I heard the mumbling again. This time, it was coming from inside my own bedroom. My heart raced. I felt dread creep up my spine. I had never experienced anything like this. I lay in bed, frozen, listening closely. The mumbling was clearer than ever. It sounded like my roommates. But they weren't there. I could feel my breath quicken. The noises grew louder, and I just wanted it to stop. Finally, I gathered my things and moved out. I didn't have the strength to ask what was going on. I still don't know if I was imagining it all. The memories haunt me, and I often wonder what I really experienced in that apartment. I still hear faint mumbling sometimes when I'm alone. It follows me, and I can't shake the feeling that something might still be watching. I guess I'll never truly understand what happened back then. As soon as I moved into my new place, I thought about the chaos of the past. I was tired of feeling scared in my own skin. I needed a fresh start, even if I was still haunted by memories of that apartment. I took a deep breath and tried to focus on the future. I found a small studio apartment in a different neighborhood. It felt safe, and I figured one person was easier to manage than two. It was quiet, which suited me just fine. I unpacked my boxes and rearranged the furniture. I wanted this place to feel like home. A week later, I was settling in. Everything seemed fine. I was enjoying my solitude until I started hearing noises again. Soft, low sounds, like distant murmurs. I convinced myself it was just the city. Old plumbing, maybe? Or neighbors having a late-night chat. I tried to ignore it. Then late one evening, I was curled up on the couch, watching TV. The whispers grew louder. They felt different this time. They were closer, almost inside my own head. It was as if they were repeating my name. I shook it off as an overactive imagination. Old habits die hard. The next day, the sounds continued. I debated whether to talk to my new neighbors, to see if they heard anything strange. But who would believe me? I didn't want to appear paranoid. It felt too personal, too messy, and I had just gotten my life together. One afternoon, I went out for coffee. As I walked through the cafe, I noticed a woman staring at me. There was a strange familiarity about her. I tried not to think much of it. I grabbed my drink and found a seat, but I could feel her gaze lingering on me. When I looked back up, she was gone. I shook my head. I was being ridiculous, imagining connections where none existed. It's just my brain, I thought. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd seen her before. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. Back at home, the mumbling returned as evening approached. This time, I could almost hear words, like they were trying to tell me something. I pressed my ear against the wall, trying to decipher the sounds. There was urgency in the whispers, a feeling that something was wrong. Panic bubbled up inside me. Then I saw something, a shadow moving just beyond the window. I froze, my heart pounding. I peered closer, straining my eyes to see. Nothing. Just the street, empty and quiet, but the sounds were still there, louder now, swirling around me. I felt trapped. There was no escape from my own fears. I grabbed my phone to call a friend, but just as I dialed, something hit the window hard. I jumped back, my breath quickening. When I looked outside, that same woman stood outside, staring directly at me. Startled, I ran to the door, heart racing. I threw it open, confusion kicking in. But she was gone. Only the street remained, silent and still. I felt dizziness wash over me. Maybe I was losing my grip. But then, I remembered the whispering again. Something was definitely wrong, and I needed to find out what it was. I spent the night on edge, tossing and turning. Sleep wouldn't come, not with the whispers echoing in my mind. I kept shifting from one position to another, unsure if the noises would return, unable to shake the feeling that the woman outside was linked somehow. The next day, I made a decision. I needed to confront this head-on. I would talk to my neighbor. There was a woman living next door, and surely if anyone could help, it would be her. I felt a rush of determination as I walked over. After all, if I couldn't trust the people around me, who could I trust? I knocked gently on the door. For a moment, I stood there, heart pounding, feeling silly for being nervous. A few moments passed before the door creaked open. The neighbor stood there, her hair tied back in a messy bun, a mug in her hands. She looked mildly surprised but friendly enough. "Hi, I'm Jenna," I said, forcing a smile. "I just moved in next door." "Nice to meet you," she replied. "I'm Sarah. Everything okay?" I hesitated, unsure of how to explain. I've been hearing noises in my apartment. I thought maybe you could tell me if it's the building or something." Her expression shifted. Like a shadow passing over her face. "Noises?" she asked, her voice slightly lowered. "What kind of noises?" "Whispers," I admitted, feeling ridiculous as the word left my lips. "They sound like they're right next to me." She studied me for a moment, and I could almost see her mind racing. "I wouldn't worry about it too much. This building is old. It creaks and groans. You know how it is." "Right," I murmured, but I could tell she wasn't buying it either. There was a flicker of something in her eyes, a hint of fear. Before I could respond, Sarah turned slightly, glancing behind her. "Listen, maybe I'll check in with you later. Just, keep the volume up. It'll drown out other things." I didn't understand what she meant, but the look on her face told me she was hiding something. As I walked back to my apartment, the whispers felt heavier, like they were wrapping around me tighter. I need to find out what was really going on. Later that night, I resolved to do some digging. I grabbed my laptop and searched for any information on the building. What I found sent chills down my spine. There had been rumors about strange occurrences over the years, but nothing solid. Just vague stories of residents who claimed to hear voices or see shadows. I shivered at the thought that maybe I wasn't losing my mind after all. Then, just as I was about to log off, I received an unexpected message. It was a notification from a community forum where people shared their experiences living in the neighborhood. One post caught my eye. Beware of room 303. Things are not as they seem. I felt my heart race. That was my apartment number. That S when I saw it, an image attached to the post. It was grainy, but unmistakable. The woman from the cafe. Standing outside my apartment. Staring. Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder this time, echoing through my head. My breath caught in my throat. Not just whispers. They were calling my name. I had to know more. I couldn't sit in my apartment any longer, feeling like I was trapped in a nightmare. The whispers were louder now, more insistent. They felt tangible, as if something was pulling at my mind. Grabbing my jacket, I stepped outside, determined to confront the unknown. I decided to find Sarah. I figured she might have more information than she was letting on. After searching the hallways, I found her door cracked open. I knocked lightly. "Sarah?" I called, my voice steady despite the anxiety bubbling under the surface. No answer. I pushed the door open just a bit more. The apartment was dark, shadows creeping in every corner. It felt empty, eerily so. I stepped inside and called out again, "Sarah? Are you here?" Still nothing. Just as I turned to leave, something caught my eye. A small piece of paper on her kitchen counter. It was an envelope, and the name on it read Jenna. My name. I felt a rush of fear. Had she been watching me? I opened the envelope, my hands shaking, and pulled out a note. The handwriting was shaky, uneven. "Stay away from room 303. She's coming for you." The word sent chills down my spine. I turned to look down the hallway, the door to my own apartment looming at the end, dark and silent. What did Sarah know? Why was she warning me? Just then, the whispers intensified, swirling around me like a storm. "Jenna, come back," they echoed. I stumbled back, heart pounding. I had to leave, to get away from this chaos. I raced out of Sarah's apartment, but as I reached the door, it slammed shut, almost as if it had a mind of its own. Panic surged through me. My only escape was through the front door, but it felt impossibly far away. I took a deep breath, willing my legs to move. As I ran down the hallway, I felt a cold wind on my back, almost like someone was right behind me. I burst through the entrance and out into the cool night air. The world outside felt surreal, the darkness pressing in from every side. Catching my breath, I glanced back at the building, its windows glinting ominously in the moonlight. But then I saw her. The woman from the cafe. She stood at the edge of the parking lot, that same intense stare fixed on me. "Jenna," she whispered, her voice dripping with familiarity. Something deep inside me twisted, paralyzed by fear. Why was she here? Did she know about the note? My heart raced as I turned to run, but not before I caught a glimpse of something in her hand, a small key, shimmering under the streetlight. Everything came rushing back. The uneasy whispers, the warnings, the hidden truths. I needed answers, but I was too scared to ask. I fled into the night, the darkness swallowing me whole, but the whispers followed. As I turned the corner, one thought anchored itself in my mind: this wasn't over yet. Someone was in control, and I felt their presence more than ever. I ran through the streets, the chill of the night soaking into my bones. Each breath felt heavy as my mind raced. The woman at the parking lot. What did she want from me? Why was Sarah warning me? The notes and the whispers mingled, creating a dissonant melody that echoed in my head. I didn't want to go home. The thought of being alone in my apartment made me want to scream. Instead, I headed toward a nearby diner, its neon sign flickering like a beacon. I needed a place to think, a place to gather my thoughts. Pushing through the door, the bell chimed softly. The diner was nearly empty, save for an elderly couple in a booth and a tired waitress wiping down the counter. I slid into a corner booth, my heart still racing. "Coffee?" the waitress asked, her tone warm but her eyes tired. "Yeah, please," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. As she poured my coffee, I glanced outside through the glass window. The shadows seemed thicker across the street, and I thought I saw a figure lurking there. But when I looked again, it was gone. Just paranoia, I told myself. The waitress set the cup in front of me, and I took a long sip to ground myself. I needed to figure out what to do next. My mind went back to the note from Sarah. Stay away from room 303. But what lay behind that door? Suddenly, I remembered something. A conversation with Sarah a few weeks ago. She had mentioned a girl who used to live in that room, someone who had vanished without a trace. "Nobody talks about it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head, willing myself to forget it, to erase the image of that empty room. But I couldn't. The whispers began again, growing louder, swirling back into my thoughts. They didn't just want me to know, they needed me to confront whatever was haunting that space. I felt a sickening pull. Then, the door swung open, and a gust of wind swept through the diner. My heart stopped as I caught sight of her, the woman from the cafe. She stepped inside, her gaze locked onto mine. I froze, a mix of fear and recognition coursing through me. Before I could react, she took a step forward and leaned against the counter. "Jenna," she said again, unervingly calm. "You need to listen to me." I forced myself to breathe, but I couldn't look away. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, fighting to keep my voice steady. "There's not much time." She glanced nervously at the door as if expecting someone to follow her. "Room 303 isn't just any room. It's a crossroads. And you're in danger." The whispers harmonized with her words, a chorus that filled the small space. Confusion washed over me. What did she mean? "What do you mean by crossroads? Who's coming for me?" Just then, the lights flickered, plunging the diner into darkness for a brief moment. When they flickered back on, the woman was gone. The door swung shut behind her, the bell chiming innocently as if nothing had happened. I felt the cold sweat trickle down my back. Someone was playing a game, and I was the unwitting pawn. Clenching my fists, I made my decision. I had to face whatever awaited me in room 303. I just had to find the courage to do it. As I left the diner, the whispers rose again, but this time they felt like a warning. That girl, she might be my only hope. I turned back, staring at the spot where she'd been. "I'll find you," I whispered. But was it too late? The morning light sliced through the blinds, chasing away the remnants of my restless night. I barely slept, tumbling through thoughts of the woman, room 303, and the unsettling whispers that haunted me. I threw on a jacket, my hands trembling slightly as I felt the fabric. I had to go back to work, but deep down, I knew I wouldn't be able to focus with that room calling to me. I walked into the office, but the sounds of phones ringing and people chatting felt distant, muted. A few coworkers waved, but I barely managed a smile. My mind was spinning. I glanced at my phone. No messages. I knew it was unlikely Sarah would text me. She seemed to be avoiding me since I mentioned the room. Lunchtime arrived, but I couldn't eat. Instead, I found myself walking towards the parking lot where I had first seen her. Anxiety gripped me as I recalled the urgency in her voice. In the back of my mind, I wondered if I should involve Sarah, but I also feared she'd dismiss my concerns as mere anxiety. I turned the corner toward the old building that housed room 303. My heart raced with each step, the weight of my decision pressing down on me. I told myself it was just a door, but I knew better. Inside might be secrets better left buried. Yet I felt drawn to it like a moth to a flame. As I approached, I saw someone standing near it. My breath caught in my throat. It was a young man, scruffy with a tired expression. He wouldn't have caught my attention if he was looking directly at the door like it held all the answers. "Hey!" I called, more boldly than I felt. "What are you doing here?" He turned to me, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Waiting," he said simply. "Waiting for what?" I pressed. "For her," he replied. "You shouldn't be here." The word sent a chill down my spine. "You know about the woman?" He nodded slowly, his gaze returning to the door. "Room 303 has a way of drawing people in. She's not the first." His tone turned grave, and he lowered his voice. "You have to leave. It's not safe." I felt a rush of unease. "What do you mean? Who isn't safe?" He hesitated, glancing around as if expecting someone to overhear. "If you're in danger, it's because you're meant to be here. The room chooses its victims." Victims? My pulse quickened. What happened to the people who went in? He didn't answer, but his eyes spoke volumes. Fear surged through me. I couldn't be a victim. I needed answers. I can't just walk away. I have to know what's happening. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a bare whisper. "Then you need to understand the cost of the truth." Before I could respond, a loud crash erupted from inside the building. A heavy thud, followed by silence. My heart raced again, and I instinctively took a step back. The man looked at me, his expression firm. "You should leave now. Don't make this worse." I stood frozen for a moment, torn between the fear of the unknown and the overpowering urge to confront whatever lay behind that door. Something in me shifted. I turned toward room 303, my decision made. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, my voice trembling but resolute. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to face the darkness. But the ominous whispers echoed louder, pushing me onwards, deeper into the unknown. Then the door creaked open, revealing a shadowy figure inside. I hadn't expected anyone else. "Come in," it beckoned, voice silky yet menacing. And just like that, I was caught in its web. I stepped across the threshold, the air thickening with every inch I moved inside. The room was dimly lit, shadows clinging to the walls like trapped spirits. I scanned the space, searching for answers, but all I found was a chill that snaked down my spine. The figure before me didn't take shape right away. It lingered in the shadows, a silhouette that felt both familiar and profoundly alien. As the door swung shut behind me, a sense of isolation enveloped me. There was no turning back now. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice wavering slightly. "Someone who knows," it replied, stepping forward into the faint light. A woman, her features stark against the gloom. Her eyes glinted with an unsettling intensity. "You didn't listen, did you? They always come in, drawn like moths to a flame." I wanted to run, but my feet felt anchored to the floor. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "You're curious. You want to know about the woman. About room 303. But curiosity has its price. Do you know what you might find here?" I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. "What happened to her?" "The woman I saw?" "Everything," she said simply, raising a hand as if to dismiss the question. "And nothing." Then she turned, gesturing toward a cluttered desk in the corner. Out of the shadows, I could make out papers strewn everywhere, old photographs pinned to a corkboard, a timeline of someone's life. I approached it cautiously, wanting to piece together whatever mystery lay before me. As I moved closer, my gaze fell upon one photo that sent a wave of recognition crashing over me. It was a picture of the woman from room 303, but she looked different, happier, younger. Beside it was another photo. I squinted, a jolt of realization hitting me as I recognized the young man I had seen earlier. What does this mean? I asked, turning back to the strange woman. Her smile faded. The past is alive here. It twists and turns, merging with the present. That man, he is part of it too, part of the cycle. I took a step back, confusion swirling in my mind. Cycle? What does that even mean? She pointed at me, her eyes now darkening. You crossed a line. You can't leave until you understand the truth about this room. Until you become part of it. The hairs on my neck stood on end. No. I didn't choose this. But as I turned to flee, the door slammed shut with a resounding bang. My pulse raced as I pounded on it, panic overtaking my thoughts. I was trapped. Your fate is sealed here, she said softly, almost pityingly. That's when I noticed something shifting in the corner of my eye. The shadows didn't just linger, they writhed and twisted, as if alive. A suffocating presence filled the room, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. Someone else was in the room with us. I spun around, dread coiling in my stomach. There was no more time for questions. I needed a way out now. The shadows coiled tighter as I felt the weight of 1,000 eyes watching me. I strained to see through the dimness, heart racing. Maybe I was imagining things, but I could swear I heard whispering, the sound snaking around me like a vine. The strange woman was still there, her expression unreadable, and I felt the rising fear mixing with a strange compulsion to understand. Leave, I said, my voice firm but shaking. Let me out. She stepped closer, and I flinched. You're missing the point. You're already in it. Her voice was like ice, cutting through the thick air. You think you can just walk away after trespassing? Before I could respond, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A figure emerged from the shadows, and those whisperings grew louder, each sound like nails scraping against my thoughts. It was him. The man from the photograph. He stood there, eyes clouded and distant. A chill raced down my spine. What do you want? I gasped, backing away until I hit the wall. There was nowhere left to go. He didn't reply, only tilted his head as if trying to understand me. A moment passed, then he stepped closer, reaching out like he wanted to touch me. No. I recoiled instinctively, the heat of panic surging in my chest. Stop. I shouted. The woman stepped in front of him, a barrier. You need to listen. He lived it, felt it. He is searching, the same way you are. You're tied to this place now. Wait. I stammered, piecing it together. He died here? Is that what you're saying? Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of regret. His story is part of yours now. It's the cycle. The shadows around us pulsed, encasing the man, and he let out a low groan, a sound that made bile rise in my throat. You must find her, he said, his voice cracked, echoing, as if coming from far away. Or everything ends here. Find who? I cried, frustration gnawing at me. What am I supposed to do? The air crackled with tension. Suddenly, the woman reached out and grabbed my wrist, her grip like iron. You're not leaving until you know the truth. I struggled against her hold, but the shadows grew turbulent, swirling around us. My instincts screamed at me to escape, but I felt the heaviness of fate bearing down. Each second felt like a lifetime. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and everything went dark. I gasped, half expecting to lose my footing, yet the floor remained solid beneath me. Silence enveloped the space, thick and unnerving. Just then, a weak light started to emerge, illuminating a doorway that hadn't been there before. My heart raced, a strange mix of hope and dread swelling inside me. "Walk through it," the man whispered, his eyes locked onto mine with a pleading intensity. "Find the truth." I hesitated, panic clawing at my throat. Could I trust him? What awaited me on the other side? But I knew I couldn't stay here. With shaking legs, I took a step forward into the light, the shadows retreating behind me. Just before I crossed the threshold, I heard her voice, cold and filled with finality. "Remember, once you step through, there's no coming back." I braced myself and pushed forward, the door closing behind me with a resounding thud. I stumbled through the doorway, a rush of light temporarily blinding me. When my eyes adjusted, I found myself in a narrow, dimly lit hallway. The air felt cooler here, almost refreshing compared to the oppressive heat behind me. I took a tentative step forward, my senses on high alert. The walls were lined with photographs, much like the one I had seen before, the man's face staring out from the frames. Each picture seemed to capture a moment of happiness, family gatherings, smiling faces, celebrations. But there was an undercurrent of madness in the joy frozen in time. I felt uneasy, like I was intruding on something sacred, yet I was drawn to it. That's when I saw it, a flicker of movement at the end of the hall. My heart raced again, but this time with curiosity. Without thinking, I walked down the corridor, each step echoing with an unsettling familiarity. The images shifted as I moved, showing different perspectives of a life. I could see the man laughing, heard a faint whisper of his voice echoing. "You must find her," creeping closer to the end of the hall. I caught the scent of roses wafting through the air, surreal in the dimness. I paused at the last photograph. It wasn't just of him. A woman stood beside him, her eyes bright and alive with a warmth that made my chest ache. It was then I noticed her name etched at the bottom, Elena. "Who is she?" I breathed, suddenly desperate to know more. I turned, expecting the shadows to return behind me, but they hadn't followed. I was alone. "Find her." The man's voice echoed in my mind, steady and insistent. I glanced back at the photograph. The woman's smile seemed to brighten, almost beckoning me to understand the connection. "Why?" I whispered into the silence. What did any of this mean? I had stepped into a world where everything felt layered, like marbles under glass, each one hiding something beneath. As I turned to leave, a cold draft swept through the hallway. My breath hitched. I spun around. The photograph was changing. The woman's smile faded, uncertainty taking its place. The atmosphere shifted from inviting to foreboding. Suddenly, I heard a soft sound, the faintest whispering, like voices from around a corner. The shadows deepened, spiraling down the hall toward me, and I froze. Fear gripped me again. Then, from within those shadows, it emerged a shadowy figure. The shape morphed, taking on the likeness of the stranger from the photographs, but with something darker in his gaze. "You have to hurry. She needs you." The feeling of urgency swelled in my chest, a pressure that begged me to act. But what could I do? I felt like a pawn in a game I didn't understand. "Where is she?" I asked, though part of me feared the answer. The figure stepped closer, eyes locking onto mine. "Every second you wait pulls you deeper into the abyss. Find Elena." In that moment, I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. I was part of a puzzle that could either shatter or mend. But with each second, the darkness was closing in around me, and I had to find a way to connect the dots before it was too late. As I turned to run back down the hall, adrenaline fueling my steps, I knew I had no choice. I had to find her, and quickly. Or risk losing everything. I sprinted down the dim corridor, driven by an urgency that pulsated through my veins. Each step seemed to echo against the cold walls, the whispers from before now morphing into a haunting chant, urging me on. Find her," they echoed, intertwining with my racing thoughts. The hallway stretched longer than I expected, and just as hope began to fade, I spotted a door at the far end, slightly ajar and glowing with a soft light. Heart pounding in my chest, I reached for it, pushing it open slowly. Inside, the room was illuminated not by harsh lamps but by a soft, golden glow. It was unlike anything I'd seen before. A kaleidoscope of colors swirled like living paint across the walls, creating an ethereal tapestry. In the center stood a figure, partially obscured by shadows, a woman, standing with her back to me. My breath caught in my throat. "Elena?" I called softly, the name escaping my lips like a prayer. She turned slowly, and the world fell quiet. It was the woman from the photographs, the one whose life seemed tied to that of the man, now illuminated with warmth and energy. But in her eyes, I saw something else, an unsettling depth, as if she was aware of the shadows creeping beneath her surface. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice melodic yet tinged with an edge of disbelief. "Why are you here?" I don't know," I stammered. "I was drawn to you. I need to understand what happened to him." Elena shifted, her expression becoming grave. "You shouldn't be here. None of this was meant for you." "What do you mean? I keep hearing your name. You're the key, aren't you? Please, tell me what I need to know." My heart raced with desperation. But she shook her head. "The room has a way of pulling threads together, and I've become part of the fabric. You should leave before the shadows take hold." Before I could respond, darkness loomed at the edges of the room, writhing as if alive. My instinct screamed to run. "No. I can't leave without knowing." Elena raised a hand, but it felt inadequate against the mounting pressure of the shadows. "You're intertwined with the past now, and it's dangerous to stay. You must remember the truth is often hidden in the dark." Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, rushing in like a tide. I flinched, stepping back, but the sensation of being drawn toward the darkness was palpable. "What truth? You have to help me." As I stumbled back, the figure of the man began to materialize behind her, his features shifting between light and dark, almost like a mirage. "Help her," he pleaded, his voice echoing through the chaos. "You must break the cycle." "I can't. I don't even know how." I shot back, a mix of terror and frustration flooding my thoughts. My mind reeled as everything felt too much to comprehend. But Elena's gaze was unyielding. "Find the core of this place. The room can trap souls, but it can also free them. You must navigate the darkness to discover what binds us." "Where do I start?" I pressed, feeling the shadows closing in, an oppressive weight pushing at my chest. "In the beginning," she whispered. "What did you hear before?" The chorus of whispers began to swell again, laced with urgency. Find her," my heart raced as a sudden clarity crashed over me. In that moment of connection, an image flared to life within my mind, a fleeting glimpse of a childhood game, of a girl who laughed and danced in the sun. The name clicked into place, Elena. Her laughter echoed in my ears, memories wrapping around me, drawing me closer. "Elena." I realized, calling her name out loud. "Is this the truth? You were the one who—" The shadows paused, their frenzy dimming ever so slightly as more memories flooded my consciousness, a young girl, bright-eyed and self-assured, racing down a road lined with whispers of laughter and joy, but ultimately swallowed by darkness. "Time is precious," Elena said softly. "What must you do?" "I need to make a choice," I murmured, grappling with the realization that fate was falling into place. I needed to find the core, the hope that flickered amidst the despair, the connection that could break the cycle. With newfound determination, I pushed forward, ready to face whatever lay beyond the threshold of that darkness. I turned toward the shadows, my body vibrating with the energy of past and present colliding. I wouldn't just step forward, I would dive into the mystery that connected us all. As I entered the heart of the shadows, I felt their weightlessness. A flash of bright light pierced through the darkness, illuminating a pathway. And somehow, I knew my decision had been made. Whether I would escape or confront something unfathomable remained uncertain, but I was resolute. The last flicker of light drew me closer. If I could grasp the truth, perhaps both Elena and I could find peace. I could hear the whispers more clearly now, not only as an echo of fear but as a guiding call. The darkness felt alive, but it also felt strangely familiar, and I knew that my journey was still unfolding, with questions trailing behind like whispers in the wind. But the only answer I could cling to? I was in control of navigating the shadows, and I was ready to face whatever waited in the unknown beyond.